Alrighty. Hello, people. So, welcome. We're going to try a different mode to see if we can... Hello, gorgeous. Let's see if we can bring Carla on camera.
Goodness!
Yay! We made it! Let's bugger off tech
Can
forever.
I show
Let's have a
you
look.
something so you know how hard I've been trying? Look at this. Hang on, I'll turn you around. This is my office. That is my fancy Apple. That didn't work. This is the next computer trying, and this is the next computer I am trying. I have been trying.
That's fantastic. I love it. Beautiful.
Sorry, guys.
That's all good. We're going to see, there's going to be a few more people joining us because it's such an important conversation to have, and I'm excited about having it with you. And I'm super excited that you tried 3 different computers to get on here today.
I don't know what was going on. I could see you and hear you many times, but I couldn't get to you.
That's cool. So we're making the connection now.
Yeah, great.
So, yeah, so we've got people joining us as we're chatting. And, yeah, so today's conversation is all about how to create more flow in your consultations, right?
Cool.
And
I loved what I could hear before.
Yeah. So what I love about particularly timelines is that it creates a structure to then just have a conversation around.
Yeah.
It's not like it gets in the way. It's not, and it gives you a logical sequence. So let's start from the beginning for those people that that didn't quite get the rest of what I was saying before, because somehow it kicked me off as well. So you know about timelines from your functional medicine training, right?
That's right. It's a really integral part of how functional medicine practitioners, whether they be GP trained or osteopaths or naturopaths like ourselves or nutritionists, take a case. So yeah, it's a foundational thing that functional medicine doctors would never not use.
Yeah, cool. So I learned it at uni, and I had times where I used it and times where I didn't use it, but every time I came back to it, something else, got added to it. So it's not as simple as, like I was saying before, it's not as simple as 0 to now, which might be like the dive in somebody's health, and then from now until trying to make them better. There is so many different elements that you can bring in along the timeline. And one of my favorite things to do was making sure that we've got that pre-birth scenario.
Yeah.
So as much information as we can get, not from the second that they've come out, but everything prior to that.
That's exactly right.
What about you?
Yeah, so on my form that I do use and I created under that kind of Vita Mosaic umbrella that I use, and I think the term Vita really indicates that timeline. It's looking at the whole life, and one of the key points is what happened to your mum. And in my cases that I've done over time, and some of them I present because I find them so fascinating, when you ask that question, you find things that are massive aha moments as a practitioner that you never would have found if you hadn't have had that tool. And I show my patients the tool as we're going through it, because otherwise I think coming from standard medicine to having someone ask you about what your mum was like in the years before she was pregnant with you, or when you were when she was pregnant with you, is so foreign that I think having a tool there to explain it makes them understand why you're doing it.
Yeah, totally. Because some of the questions that we do ask as practitioners are totally random for the general public.
Yeah.
And they don't understand how those links can be made to who you are now. And even just asking questions from the past, when they've got a current, rash, they don't make that same connection that we would. And to have a tool in front of you that you're filling out as you go along, or even being able to explain it in a logical kind of sequence, gets them thinking as well.
Oh, exactly.
And my little point on that was, so I didn't realize the importance of that piece of the pie when I was having the timeline conversation until when I was pregnant I had a conversation with my mum, and I'd been seeing a couple of clients who were pregnant as well, and I was thinking about how that was relaying for their kids. And my mum said, "Oh yeah, and I took thalidomide to calm my morning sickness down."
Yes.
And it just wouldn't have come up had I not been thinking about it. And the same thing happens. A lot of our clients haven't had those conversations with their parents either. And it may not be in that first consult that they are going to know that information, but by the second one, they're able to have these other conversations about their medical history that goes further. You know, they haven't thought about their genetics necessarily, and then they can bring that back to the next consult as well.
Totally. I have this really great image that I use that's a beautiful vision of like a pathway leading towards a mountain, and there's trees on either side. And I use that analogy in the training that I do, and also with my patients, that I want to know what happened on the other side of the mountain. You know, they are where they are now, but if we look back, you know, we want to know what happened before you even knew what happened. And I think particularly as we see these rising autoimmune cases, and knowing about the environmental impacts of their mums prior to their birth, gives me lots of information and little pieces in a lot of cases that help explain, you know, direction we should go.
Yeah, totally. So the other thing that I love about the timeline and how deep you can go with it, with my timelines, we always put the physical stuff underneath the line itself, and then we would put the mental and emotional above it. Yeah. And often we to this little rut as practitioners that we just kind of go, oh yeah, physical. But we know in the back of our minds, oh yeah, there's something emotional attached to that. But when you actually put it down on paper and you actually line up the physical with what was happening from a mental position, you know, loss of job, divorce, all the big D's in life, and then the emotional aspect of what happens there, things don't just line up for us. If we put that in front of the person, things line up for them.
Yeah, 100%. And I think having it there and saying to the patient, and sometimes they probably, you know, it's almost a game to pull out this information out of the patient's mind, and they get really excited, and you're like, and what happened there? And they're like, oh, my parents got divorced. And now they're 40 and they're sitting here with their psoriasis or whatever, but you can see these progressive working back issues. Maybe they've got job stress at the moment, but you go back to when they first remember their first, you know, incidents of ill health, and it's around stressful times. And I think that gives you a big clue about where to focus your attention, or the attention of referring practitioners you might be sending them to.
Yeah, totally. And then, so what else do you find that stands out for you in that middle section of a timeline? I know you've got some incredible tools with, I keep calling it Vitame.
It's all right. You can call it whatever you want. Yeah.
But you've got an incredible amount of tools that you teach through your workshops and your trainings with the practitioners. What else stands out for you that's been helpful for you as a practitioner that you've noticed that not everybody necessarily might use?
As far as the timeline, or other tools in general?
Yeah.
As far as timeline, yeah. I think looking at those in the middle of the timeline, you know, for most patients, mine would fall into that maybe late 30s to 60-year category. And I think a lot of the teen years are really interesting. It's a conversation that often sparks discussion around recreational drug usage that might not have come up before, you know, just things about their menstrual cycle when they first began. I find that I don't do a lot of fertility. I have some great referral partners that I use for fertility, but talking about the menstrual cycle early on in women who are having fertility issues now is obviously really important. And that's great. I'm seeing Louise, who's done my Melbourne course, pop up that she loves the pie chart. Thanks, Louise. That's another tool we use following on from the timeline.
Yeah, beautiful. Yeah, so the other thing that I love about the timeline is what Dan was saying before. At the moment, I can't see comments, by the way. So feel free to, if you're seeing the comments, please feel free to talk to the comments.
Danielle made a comment before that awesome. I love saying, I love watching the aha moments when patients realize the symptoms started at a time of stress. And I agree, that's awesome.
Yeah, totally. That's one of my favorite. I live for the aha moment. That is just like
So
pretty much my
naturopathic
life.
high.
Yeah. So Dan made a really good comment before on our last little part of the training that timelines don't just have to stop where you're at. They're an amazing opportunity to set people up for where you want to take them over the next, say, 12 weeks, 6 months, a year, whatever you think is actually going to be of benefit for them. You're then able to project it forward and be able to show them, okay, so it took this long for all this stuff to start manifesting in the way that it has. And how long do you think it's going to take for it to, you know, to come back around again? And in that moment, it's not a conversation like, okay, that, you know, we're going to probably be working together for the next 6 months. It's leaving it up to them, because once they've had an awareness that this is actually what it's taken them to get to this position in the first place, they're then going to go, oh, right, so my body probably isn't going to solve this overnight with the one magical pill that you're going to give me.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that forecasting of what you can expect, and, you know, it took this long to get to this point. So once we get you to where you want to be, our suggestion as practitioners is always like, now, if we keep doing these things, we're never going to go back there. But how many times in practice do we have, particularly the longer you're in practice, you have patients come back and they've, you know, redeveloped something that they've had in the past that they haven't learned the lesson the first time, and have come back looking for you. Maybe you're in a different location, but they know, you know, you solved it the first time. So forecasting, I think, means we don't have those situations quite so frequently.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, particularly, it's really, I had a lot of fertility cases, and you know, particularly the ones that were coming up to being 40, or there's magical number that they've got in their head that they have to fall pregnant by. And just projecting out, particularly those first 12 weeks, to make sure that they've had a decent look at their liver and their gut. We've done some form of a detox or a cleanse, and then got them on board with the nutrients that they actually need, and then started with the herbs, the you know, reproductive support. They could then see it moving forward, rather than, okay, it's going to take 12 weeks. So I think there's more of a chance of creating a behavioral change for people, that they will come back because they know, okay, there's a 4-week mark, and that's what's going to happen. There's another 4-week mark after that. That's what's going to happen. Then we're going to have to retest, or whatever it happens to be. That forecasting or projecting that timeline out can create really great opportunities for, one, patient engagement, but two, having them come back as return clients.
Definitely. I think the timeline is a tool that I try to teach in my Vita Mosaic presentations as a way of retaining patients, because, you know, when you ask them about their mum's health or their health as a teen, it creates a different rapport, and also gives them a different experience than what they've probably ever had anyone ask questions in that depth before. And, you know, they don't want to go through that again, but they also feel a new connection to you, because they've really been heard in a whole different way.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Yeah. So the theme of today is around flow in consultations. And I was saying before, flow just doesn't come out of, you know, it's not like we get flow instantaneously for a lot of us. Sometimes in certain things we get, you know, we get a little bit of flow, but who was it? Keely was saying that she feels flow when she does music. And I was saying I feel flow when I get into a helicopter. But initially you feel flow like this much. Like, you know, when you first had your first consults, and you're like, blah, 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 blah. And then all of a sudden you go, oh, that was cool.
Yeah.
Where did that come from? That's awesome. And then as you get into having more and more consults, you start to go, oh yeah, this is how it is, and you start to have a lot longer periods of flow. But to get there, for me, and for Keely was saying when she was learning music, first it's a bit clunky and you feel a bit more, and first it's clunky, but you've got to get some systems and some discipline in place to be able to do it. So when you're teaching your wonderful Vita Mosaic, there we go. When you're teaching, what have you noticed about what happens with discipline, like coming back to it? Oh yeah, I forgot to do the timeline with that person, I'll come back to it. Or getting systems in place to be able to create flow. What have you noticed there with the peeps that you've had go through?
Yeah, with the practitioners or with patients?
Practitioners and yourself.
Yeah.
Like, what does it look like when you put in systems? Because often we can get a little bit, oh, but I just want it to be as it is, and I've done enough training.
I feel much more confident when I fall back on the systems, and I try and teach the practitioners that I work with that it doesn't have to be hard and fast. Like, I want them to take my tools and adapt them to how it suits them, and we do a little bit of stuff around that, like, you know, turning the forms that we're going to give to the patients into their own branding, so I feel like it's in their flow and it has their energy into it when we do that. But I think it just means that you've triple checked, double checked. It's a system where when you get to the end of running the case through that functional medicine, or what I want to call naturopathic functional medicine, including us in there, because I think we have so much added advantage to just functional medicine alone. I think you get there and you go, like, high five yourself. You know, the final form, and there is a series of forms.
Yeah.
You get to that and you're like, wow, I never would have picked that up if I hadn't have gone and done the work right back in the start. And I think that makes you as a practitioner perhaps more satisfied, knowing that there's no what ifs. You know, what if I missed this, or I didn't ask that question? I think it closes the loopholes a bit. And there's this form that we use. It's called a Mosaic Coded Clinical Guide. All my forms have these weird names, but it makes sense as you work through. And this clinical guide is literally meant to be catch you if you're like, oh, I know we need to do some work in this detoxification area, but it's not your strong suit. So I've compiled all these different resources from all different places, so you can just go, okay, you know, I'm going to fall back on that this time, and it highlights, okay, maybe I need to do some more work in this area, get some more training, learn more about these tests, find some more resources I can give to the patient in that area. So I think it overall builds a more confident practitioner.
Yeah, I agree completely. The more that you have a system from the beginning, and that you have the discipline of coming back to that system and discipline of coming back to that system, as that like I was saying before, we don't call practice perfect. It's a practice for a reason.
Yeah.
Every time is a practice, and every time you are honing in on your skills and creating more flow and all that kind of stuff. But it is a practice. We don't go to perfect. We go to practice.
Yes.
And being in that practice, having those systems in place, there's a confidence that builds. I mean, it's the same with anything that you get in flow about. If it's music for you, or if it's for me, you know, flying helicopters, I keep coming back to the practice of it, and there's more flow. Keep coming back to the practice of it, and there's more flow. I keep leaning on the systems, and then there's more flow. And you know, we have checklists as helicopter pilots as well. There's a pre-checklist, and as you go through it, and I've done that, you know, nearly 100 times now, and in that, you start to get used to the series of it, and it gives you a bit of a groove, and you're like, okay, this is cool. And then other things are kind of come in intuitively anyway. And with timelines, with any system that you use, with your checklists, with other bits and pieces, you start to get into your own groove about it anyway. But having it there as a fail-safe, because nothing gets missed, is so foundationally important, and it does create that confidence that you haven't missed anything. You know, the helicopter's not going to fall apart, you're not going to hurt the client that you've got, and you are going to give a consistent result to every other client that you see as well, right?
Right. Sorry for my walking around, everyone. I hope I don't give you nausea, just another tech drama. Yeah, for sure. And I think the more that here's a couple of my girls in the clinic here. We're in the clinic.
Hey girls.
I think the more confidence you have, I mean, I wouldn't want to be in an airplane without feeling 150% confident, and I don't really want to be in a consult room, particularly with some of the really, really ill patients who have seen hundreds of other, well, maybe not hundreds, but tens of other practitioners. I want to be amazing, you know, and I want to know that I'm giving them everything I know and every tool I have, and without feeling like I have a system, I don't know if I can do that.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. That's so cool. So Uh, timelines, checklists. What else makes you feel in flow when you're practicing?
Look, I just get so passionate about working with these patients. So I think I have to be careful my flow doesn't flow everywhere. And those who know me well know that I can talk. And so I have a bit of a reputation, I think, for amongst my patients. You know, I've heard people say, oh, go to Carla. She talks a lot. But I just get so excited because I see opportunities for people to improve their health in this puzzle. Like, I'm very visual. So that's where the mosaic term comes in. And sometimes, you know, in this conversation, whether it be through the timeline or doing some other part of the mosaic, I feel like, oh, that was that piece that no one else had been able to find, and I'm internally having a massive flow moment and pretty much high-fiving myself and trying to remain professional at the same time. Katie has said, oh my God, me too, that she actually a couple of you agree that you get a little bit too excited, and I think that's awesome to have that in your job.
Yeah, totally. And that's the other thing about having a system that allows you to stay within your time limits as well. Because, you know, especially when I was first starting out, and, you know, occasionally with my favorite clients, I would still end up going overtime because I just wanted to give and give, and I was so excited. And like, I had my internal aha moment like you just had. And it was like, oh, now I have to share that nice and easily, but I have to share that.
Katie has described it as almost like a wriggly puppy. Totally. I'm just like, oh.
I love that. That's perfect. Yeah, cool. So, now, you know, I accumulated my systems over time, initially starting at uni, and then, you know, seeing how other practitioners practice. Being in a multimodality practice, it's really easy to be able to start, you know, feeding off one another. But a lot of people practice by themselves, or might just be starting out, or have practiced by themselves for years. So if they wanted to get in contact about the upcoming workshops, I happen to be coming to the Gold Garden,
that's so exciting.
And yeah, how do we find out more information about the naturopathic functional medicine of Vitae Mosaic?
Good job. So go to my website, which is just carlarenn.com. Ren is with 2 N's. And there's heaps of information on there. Just keep scrolling down because I put so much information. I am offering a little call too. So if you would like to have a discovery call, I'm calling it, to find out more, I'm happy to share some information. I've had a lot of information and questions thrown at me about, does this suit me? You know, some practitioners who, like myself, have been working in this area for a long time. Then also perhaps some newbie practitioners or people just about to graduate. So I'm happy to have a chat. You can hop online and book that, and you'll see a little link on my website. You know, just it may not suit you where you are at the time, but I think this is functional medicine is a term that's going to grow in Australia. There is amazing resources out there in the States and Canada and the UK where functional medicine is really big, and I think this is a great time to pick up on it and bring it into your practice. So as patients start to become familiar with the term functional medicine, you know, you're part of that shiny, bright new thing, but you also have what I think are really great systems to move forward in your practice and be a better practitioner.
Yeah, and you know, just like we talk about in the hub all the time, there is a difference between hearing functional medicine and functional medicine practices in a non-naturopathic way, and then there is hearing it in a naturopathic way. It's just like here in the hub, getting a virtual assistant who has been a naturopath and has been in your shoes, of course they're going to get it quicker and easier than a VA that's like full-on tech. So if we're going to learn functional medicine from anybody, having it within our profession is just epic. And to have you, who, you know, you're in a massive clinic and you have beautiful, amazing, complex cases, and you've got such amazing results with your clients, to have not only the structures and the beauty of Vitae Mosaic, and in that I love the way how visual everything is.
Thank you to my husband.
I think as a practitioner and as a business person, I love things from a feminine perspective, to be in alignment with me. I don't want to hear about it in like a really tech right here. Have your spreadsheet that looks awful. Like I want to hear it from that that intuitive feminine side, and I want to hear it from somebody who's actually gone through the process themselves and has taken other people through it.
Yes.
And I think that's an amazing gift that you're bringing to our profession, that you have this experience, that you have, you're a mum, you're juggling the same kind of stuff as all of us. And to bring this as well is just, yeah, I think it's epic, and I can't wait to see it.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
look,
really cool.
I feel that I owe a lot of my success to a practitioner called Karen Jackson, who owned this dispensary before I did, and she gave me a lot of amazing opportunities, and one of them did enable me to get over to the States. And I think that what I saw happening there and what I see happening there at the moment just makes me so inspired that we can pick up some of the things. But I think we have a lot of amazing tools that they don't have. Certainly they would say the same, the functional medicine practitioners who I met in the States, even the metagenics reps who I met in the States looked longingly at me and thought, I wish I had the supplement access that we have here. And so, I want to turn what we have and just make it a little bit better. My ultimate aim is to help as many people as possible with complex chronic disease. I think there is a bit of a crisis, although that sounds dramatic sitting with my patients. I agree, there's a bit of a crisis. And if I can, in some small way, help you guys, help your patients with their own personal crises, then we're all doing amazing things. Bit of woo-woo there.
I'm massively on board. But I'm massively on board for the ripple effect.
Yeah.
And it takes people like you to take your gifts and your talents and turn it into something that you can actually create and share with others, that then shares it with their clients, that then shares it with their, the other clinicians that they come into contact with, which then shares it with their clients, and then their families, and they're like, we're doing amazing things as a profession, and to have anything that allows us a little bit of a step up or broadens our perspective on, I'm super grateful for your contribution, Carla.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much.
Cool. All right, guys. I will be in the comments section below, and I'm pretty sure, Carla's about in the hub fairly frequently.
Yeah.
So if you've got any questions below, she'll pop the details below in the comments section as well. And there's always an actionable step with Thursday trainings. My invitation is to try out a timeline. It's literally as simple. It doesn't have to be complex. It's literally as simple as putting an A4 piece of paper on the side in landscape and writing a line across the middle of it, and then starting from pre-birth to where they're currently at, and then giving them a little frame for future reference, and sticking physical underneath and mental and emotional up top, and see how it works for you. Play with it. If you haven't used it before, see with a client or two what happens and what conversations come up that you might have missed usually. And if you are interested in getting on board with Vide Mosaic, I'll be in at the Gold Coast one as well. Then go to carlawren.com and you'll be able to find out more information.
Awesome. Thanks, Tammy. And I encourage you to do it with your next patient, or yourself, or a loved one.
Totally.
It's
and
really
do it
inspiring.
now.
Yeah.
Like, do it now.
Next person. Yeah.
Awesome. Next person. Yeah. Yes. Both Carla and I are on board. Hey, and come back into the hub and tell us how it went. That would be super cool.
Send us a picture.
That would be
I'll try and find I'll find one and I'll pop it up too, or maybe Carly or Nicole or someone, Louise even, someone who's already got one can pop one of theirs up and share it too.
Yeah, awesome.
Okay,
All right, thanks
so
Carla.
much.
Bye.
Bye.